Hello, this is Stephen Seifert. Welcome to another Dulcimer diary. I have in my lap a replica of an Uncle Ed Thomas Dulcimer. So, Uncle Ed was building dulcimers around Bath, Kentucky in the early 1900s. I don't know when he started. I don't know when he stopped. This is a replica made by Allen Mills. And Allen was working at Berea at the time, and he was building playable replicas of some of the instruments in the Berea collection because you cannot touch those source instruments. They're pretty protected. It's got wooden tuners. It's got wire frets under just 2 of the strings. And I'm going to strum with a quill. I'm holding the thick end of the quill. You pull all the fuzzy stuff off. You make contact with the strings with the thin end, and you strum like you're beating eggs. That's one way to do it. This is a noter. It's just a round stick. I'm going to use this to press one of the strings down. It's pretty quiet. I don't know how this is going to come across, but I want to play a little bit. These frets, Allen said he placed these exactly where the Uncle Ed Dulcimer had frets. So I want to hear what it sounds like. And I want to compare it to some other instruments here. I've tuned DAA. I know some old dulcimers might have been tuned unison. There's some other options, but 155 is certainly something we see across the globe. Different fretted zithers use this tuning. And I went with DAA because this particular gauges here, I think, work best that way. So there's this tune, man. I think I've done noter stuff on YouTube before, and I probably played the same tune, but I love it. I learned this from David Schnaufer. This is called All the Good Times Are Past and Gone. When I note, there's a couple ways. You can run your index finger along the side here and put the thumb on top and travel that way. Another way is to put the index finger on top and then have maybe the middle and thumb right along the side. I play both ways depending on the instrument, and I kind of like playing both ways sometimes. So let's hear a little bit of this All the Good Times Are Past and Gone. Not bad. And you can run these frets up, and they're not bad. Now, they're not standard fret placement. You know, if you buy a modern dulcimer, it is fretted equal temperament, which means it's fretted pretty much how a guitar would be fretted. But these frets are something different. And I suspect they're closer to what might be called just intonation, but I haven't really studied this out on this. I need to run it through a tuner and find out. But you know, you hear a lot of drone here, and it's a sweet sound. So I have another instrument I want to try. So I'm going to set this one down. This one is a dulcimer made by Warren May of Berea, Kentucky. And I believe this is poplar. It's beautiful. Again, wood tuners, friction tuners they call them. The year on this one, let's see, that Uncle Ed replica was made in 2011. And this one, I don't know when he made this thing. I can't read it. Does it mean I'm getting older? I don't know. don't see a year on it. But it's number 15378. So I suspect he made this in the 2000s, 2010s. Now I'm going to use a pick on this one. That's a very thin pick. And I do want to use that noter. So this one's tuned the same. The fretting. Warren May has tempered these frets through the years. And he told me about this, how he likes to play chords as well as the melody. So I think over the years he would adjust these frets a little one way or the other to try to get this sweet sound, which I suspect is very similar to the just intonation that we find on the Uncle Ed. But this is a custom temperament by Warren May. And if you really want to benefit from his years of tempering these frets, this DAA is a particularly good tuning for that. So that you're applying all those pitches to the same kind of thing he was playing at, 155. So listen to these, same tune. I'll play with my index on top on this one. Very neat sound. Some of you, maybe this is the first time you've heard of this, but some of these old Dulcimers, the frets, they don't, if you put them on an electronic tuner, just set to its normal settings, it's going to tell you that some of these notes are off. And then you're going to think you've got a Dulcimer, where the frets are off. These are intentionally this way to match the way we sing. If we don't have any fixed pitch instruments around us, if we don't have any accompaniment instruments and we're just singing, especially if you're singing in a group, you're going to sing in pitch intervals that are very similar to these two Dulcimers. And there's no one answer for it, but it leads to pure intervals. Sometimes the chords sound sweet. And it's a big topic. And there's a lot to learn with it. But this one fella I met, he remembers his grandpa making these Tennessee music boxes, Dulcimers. And he said you'd get the Dulcimer built, but you wouldn't put the frets in yet. And he said you would string it up, get it in tune, and run a thin nail under the strings, like a movable fret, until the interval sounded right. And then he said you just dip the sharp part of the nail forward and mark. And you do that all the way up, and getting to what your ear sounds nice against the drone. And curiously, you see this like in Indian classical music. In India, they'll have a drone and they'll have these pitches, and it's a very similar thing. It's an old world thing. I think fiddlers nowadays in old time music, they use these same intervals. If you hear an old time fiddler next to a bluegrass fiddler, they have to come together a little bit, because the old time fiddler's doing pitches that are more like this. And we might as well, I know I played some DAA not too long ago on my McCafferty, but I want you to hear the chords on this. And a lot of note or drone players, they don't want to do chords. Warren May plays chords, and he's tempered these frets, not just for the melody, but so these chords have that sweet sound. So just listen to some of these. It's a subtle difference, but I don't know if you can hear it, but that is sweet. That's amazing. It's a different thing. And I've always felt like most people don't understand what Warren May was doing and is still doing. My recommendation to you is to, this is a crazy thing to tell a bunch of people. He's still making dulcimers, as far as I know, in Berea, Kentucky. Warren May. I would get him to make you one ASAP. He's been building these things, it says here, since, what does this say? Somewhere I thought it said since 1972. Well, it's 2024. Now this is a sensitive subject, so before I tell you to order one, I just want to make the point again. These don't line up with the modern equal temperament electronic tuner. Your tuners, though, most of them have, well, not most of them, a lot of them have a just intonation setting where you pick the key you're in. And that can get you in tune. But if you compare these notes to a modern equal temperament instrument, they're going to be different. But it is not wrong, you know. And so I'm reluctant to talk about this because I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. But let me just recommend you get one of these ASAP. So tell him you want these wood tuners. He'll put geared tuners on there. But he does a fine job of making these. And yes, they're not as easy as the electronic stuff. But he does a very good job of putting them in there. And they're beautiful. And if you want something special that really only comes from, you know, this part of the world, I'd get you one just like that. Also, tell him to leave the 6.5 fret out. I don't get it. In the DAA tuning, you can get an extra A chord there, but don't do it. And play it in DAA. Don't tune this thing to DAD. You're not going to get that same sweetness. Just tell him you want it made the old way. And Warren, if you're listening and I'm off base on some of this, please tell me. I'll do another video and straighten myself right out. I actually recorded Warren playing in his shop a number of years back with some really good microphones, and then I even recorded the two of us playing a few things together, and I gotta get it out. I want to share with people, but I want to do it in a way that he's happy with. This is a weird video to make because I'm telling you, the frets are not where they are on modern instruments, and it's a good thing. But it's it's in particular, it's particular to a historic context. And I love this idea. If you take a choir with no piano or any kind of accompaniment and you have them all sing in harmony, they will very often migrate towards the kind of chords you were hearing on this instrument. All right. So let's listen to my Terry McCafferty. This is one that I strung up and intonated, made adjustments to just for the DAA tuning. And I did a video recently with this. And let's just hear it. Let's hear the difference. And I'm going to use a noter on it. I think what you're going to find is all these sound nice. It's a very subtle thing we're talking about. All right, a little bit of the same tune again. Now I'm going to do some of those DAA chords without the noter and listen to these. And they're pretty, but it's a different thing. And you know, if I go into a studio with a bunch of modern instruments, I'm probably taking the McCafferty. Because my pitches have to line up with the guitar player and the mandolin player. And it's just it's a strange thing to talk about. Because I want to convey that there's a difference, but that it's beautiful. And we should hold on to it and use it. Beautiful. Let me do the same kind of thing on the Warren May, the chords. And yeah, the old time Dulcimer players, I don't know how much chording they were doing. I would say mostly drone melody, but now let's the same kind of thing on here. See if you can hear the difference. Not in the tone, but the way the pitches work together. Now the interesting thing is, when you start nudging these frets this way and that, certain chords become more harmonious, and other ones can become a little more dissonant. But it's kind of that old world thing, you know. I don't want to only do one of these approaches. I like the idea of being able to do a little bit of all of them. I do know there's some people out there making Uncle Ed replicas, which is pretty cool. Why am I not playing chords on here? Well, it's only got frets under 2 of the strings. I can actually fret 2 strings on this. It sounds a little weird. It's almost like on this one, you're better off just sticking with fretting 1 string at a time. And I don't know, but I wonder if Uncle Ed just did this by ear. Just like I was telling that story about the fellow with the nail. Now we talk a lot about changing tunings, and I want to do this last thing before I hit the off button today. I'm going to take this McCafferty. It's in DAA. It's strung up for DAA. I think if I tried to put it in DAD, the string would break, probably. I'm going to run this melody string down 1 whole step from an A to a G. And this gives us a minor tuning. Listen to this. So just by changing the melody string down 2 half steps, we went from DAA to DAG, you get a different scale against the drum. Pretty neat. And Gene Ritchie did some of this stuff, I know. Howie Mitchell's got a neat track on YouTube. I guess he did it back in the 70s, maybe, I'm guessing. Maybe earlier. Where he takes a dulcimer, just like what we've got here, and he keeps changing the melody string to be a different note. And every time he does that, you get a different scale. It's a nice track. I want to try this with the Warm May. I want to take the melody strings, because there's 2 of them, down a whole step. So I've always wondered how common this was, because if the frets have been tempered, so they're not equal temperament, when you tune down, you kind of you're going to get some different things happening. But let's. You kind of got to push in as you turn these. And sometimes I tune too sharp on purpose so that I can stretch the string just a little bit and it'll bring it in tune. I'm picky. And this is why people don't use wood pegs. kind of like it. I wouldn't want it for my everyday Dulcimer, but so now let's try that same kind of thing and see what it sounds like on this Warren May with his particular fret tempering. You know, each note in the scale, it reminds me of when people are tasting wine. You know, they're looking for these differences. Subtle differences. We'll end up with trying this on the Uncle Ed here. I'm gonna go with that. Now the string is not as tight now because I lowered it, so there's less tension. I gotta be careful I don't push the note in too deep. Kind of a neat thing, neat topic. You know, I don't even know what to say about it. I kind of love it. I love the idea that you could go into this older mode of being and hear something the way it used to sound, which doesn't match our modern sensitivities, you know. But I never can get away from this thought that our voices, if we were to just sing something, we naturally tend to sing in a way these older instruments were fretted. And you'll find old instruments that are fretted just like a mess, but I think Warren's is on purpose, and I think Uncle Ed's is on purpose. And you can still ask Warren May what he thinks about this. And I'd like to know, Warren, you know, you've been doing this your whole life, since you were very young. I would love to know what you think about modern fretting, the older folk ways of fretting, and the pros and cons of each, and what you really love about the way you do it. I'd like to know that. Maybe I ought to call him up. That's not a bad idea. So, Warren will build you a Dulcimer. I recommend you get one and explore these older ways. Should you get the wood tuners, I'll leave that up to you, but leave that 6.5 fret off. Tune it DAA. Try it the old way. Where do people go wrong with this sometimes? I think their Dulcimer gets out of tune. They're noting and pushing too hard, so that makes it more out of tune. They strum too hard, and it just starts to go south. And that's on any Dulcimer, you know. But if you could get one of these and do it that sweet older way, that might be something for you to experience. It's got to be better than scuba diving, right? I don't know. I did a little of that. It wasn't bad. I think this is cheaper. Y'all have a good one. I'll talk to you later.